My name is Couch Coop, and we're going to be looking at a single player video game as opposed to local goggle split screen today in the form of Metro Exodus. Released in 2019, it made quite a loud noise on the PlayStation enhanced circuit because it comes with ray tracing, it comes at 4K 60 frames per second. I've always wanted to do a standalone video on this game, but the release of the new Stalker sort of prompted me to actually produce something. They both sort of sit in this post-apocalyptic radioactive future. Stalker's a bit more Chernobyl focused, and Metro is a lot more global. You find that out with some of the plots on this game. That was me backing into a fire there trying to get the capture. This is also well cheap physical at the moment. What with it being 5 years plus old, cannot believe I'm saying that. It's worth looking out for pre-owned.
Stick to the perimeter. Avoid going in. Our contact is here.
Let's have a very quick look at this new Stalker game because it was released on Game Pass on day one and I got to look at it on my Clockwork PC. As you can tell here, it was not running very well. It's had this colossal patch come in recently. People with powerful machines and higher end consoles don't really have an issue with it, but it didn't come out the gate without a few stumbles, let's just say. And that brings me on to Exodus's gameplay model. It's a far more linear experience than something you'll find in Generation Zero or the new Stalker, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Find Dr. Ngoda. He's agreed to give you the coordinates.
I don't think it'll be that easy.
I have a certain affinity or passion for a good analog universe. Some of you might know of my control material, the non-digital aspect. The memories I have of Last Light, which was 11 years ago, 2013, what the hell, seems like the other day I was playing that, was creeping through sort of dark and dingy sewers with that grease gun, and you had this ammunition that was external. You could see it in the little casing carrier on the side of the gun. It was absolutely awesome. There wasn't any numeric reading whatsoever. And this also went down to kinetically pumping all your equipment, everything having to have this sort of physical charge attached to it, things running out constantly, your visor cracking. The game was stressful to say the least, but the immersion was really gritty and real feeling. Exodus has, understandably, quite a lot of dialogue, a female companion to a certain extent at the beginning, and quite linear quest lines and planned out routes that you take through the apocalyptic landscape. It does sort of ramp up your dependency on having to craft items and the hostile radiation within the world, but at the start it feels like any other sort of AAA first-person shooter. I want to say at this stage in the video that it runs extremely well. Not a single piece of screen tear, no frame drops that were obvious to me, and that 4K is crisp AF. That dynamic weather is amazing. Looking at the clouds, looking at the rain, the reflections and water mechanics. 2019, this must have rocked a lot of worlds. Back to that dialogue point, and I said understandably when talking about the amount in that front end of the game. The Metro series is taken from a bunch of books. Big books, very detailed and universe heavy, descriptive, character rich stories that are very difficult to sort of shove right into a first person shooter video game. So they need to give everyone a sort of angle, gravitas. You need to empathize or hate people, and this is done through that dialogue delivery. Another studio who pulled off a similar situation with a completely different IP is CDPR and the Witcher series. They managed to give us all of that rich lore and cool story and characters from that literature and still make a decent video game out of it. Occasions where that has been completely mucked up in film is the only good example I can come up with off the top of my head is World War Z. That book is so unbelievably diplomatically, geopolitically complicated that there was no way that they were ever going to get that across with Brad Pitt jumping out of a helicopter. Another film that gets it spot on is Stephen King's misery. That book and film are almost parallel in their brilliance. Coop, you are going off topic. Just the last one. Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho. People who walk around and use that meme and reckon they know who Patrick Bateman is and haven't read that book, you've got a lot of homework to do. What have we just stumbled into a high school lesson in English literature here? Can we get back to why this game is worth a look in 2025? Is that what you're going to call the video? Pressure me with video titles at this stage.
Artyom, I'm at the top. It's an excellent spot.
Dang, this boat stuff looks good. I love it as a traversal technique. A little bit God of War-like, but just about anything can go down and jump up on the lip of that thing and try and capsize. You end up dumping clip after clip into what I can only describe as giant mutant flea-like lobsters. So on that segue with the giant flea-like mutant lobsters, I want to talk about the sort of human being presence in this game, particularly on that front end. All I want is hideous, mutated, radioactive monsters everywhere. I want them all the time, coming at me through doors, windows, ceilings, bring it. Having a tete-a-tete with another human being, maybe they've got cover, maybe got a way to poke their head out. That is Far Cry Chernobyl territory, and no one wants to play that, actually. And it knows that, because at the beginning it gives you a full-blown shotgun, giant rats jumping at your face. It's really good, but then all of a sudden it just goes, by the way, you've got to deal with loads of human beings now. And if I didn't know the Metro series and its hardcore sort of survival roots and some amazing looking creatures and monsters will 100% pop up at some point, at this stage I'd be like, I'm playing the most generic game ever, help me. And I think that's the point that the developers wanted to make. They wanted to get this as accessible as possible and then start creeping in those mechanics that made the series so famous in the first place. I'm talking about always running out of filters on your air, having to craft things really quickly before you die of cancer, and always being one bullet or one health pack away from imminent death. The good news is that totally comes along, but you've just got to jump through a whole bunch of generic hoops to get there. Can I have some comments on some other good analog universes, please, in gaming? Fallout is a really top one, and Mad Max to a certain extent. If you got to my Alien Romulus review, you'll know that the director didn't quite get the memo on what analog means. Also, that female companion is actually bearable, probably because it's 2019, and you're joined at the hip for at least 2.5 hours. You're also sort of canonised by her for no real particular reason, and she's the boss's daughter. It just seems a little bit like matey didn't quite earn that spot. I'm not jealous. But she very politely recoils as a presence for some of the missions that come up within that first quarter, and dang is it welcome. Nothing from that poor rabbit, nothing. I shot that thing in cold blood, didn't even get like a lucky foot or some fur. Felt that was very cruel. I thought you shooting it was cruel, so... So then we're off on our merry adventures. The babysitter's gone, we've got our own map. We've got one objective, but it does increase. You do get a little bit of choice and options with different ways to approach sort of infested massive buildings. There was one point where we're in the train and we're coming into like a big metropolis derelict city, and you've got that winged gargoyle thing flying around. It's loaded in incredibly far away, but they keep foreshadowing it. Look out for that giant big thing. And I'm just like a kid with my nose pressed up against the glass, like, please let me out. Please let me just go and murder some mutants over there in that massive complex. And they're like, no, you've got to go with your babysitter and go and find a bit of cloth in a plane. They've spent so much time on this water, I think, and the jump scares, so they're sort of woven into genuinely just walking around complexes like blind corners and stuff. They'll have some zomboid dude jumping straight at your head. That's something else that I want to get to, and this is technically billed as a survival game. It is a third-person action shooter, but it has elements of crafting and resource management. It perfectly pitches, and this is a really difficult thing to do with video games like this, I feel, is the ammunition ammunition quantities and how they're dropped and how they're not in massive supply all the time. How you have to make decisions about what to shoot, what to avoid, what to craft, even using the environments and kiting them round. It's a clever idea, and I think it requires quite a lot of playtest to really get that pitch right. Other games I feel totally nailed this are the Resident Evil games, particularly the older ones. Some of the newer ones are a little bit gun heavy. Cut to Resident Evil 5 and unloading a whole clip of that assault rifle into a boulder. Weapon mods and different crafting of additional attachments to your gear that you've already got, like making that pistol really cool, putting new stocks and barrels on the assault rifle. I loved that idea. You don't get to craft ammo straight away, I don't think. That was a big one in the early games. You were constantly looking to make more bullets, but it's still pretty damn detailed considering some of the minor changes with this game model. And this world is extremely well built. They have not held back on these amazing dynamic weather effects, and storms come in, the rain kicks up, and you can see so far into the distance your objective. There might be a little mutant on top of a derelict block of flats. You can see everything despite its incredible distance from you. So this is 100% a game for the shelf. It's one you should look out for, or if you're sitting on top of Backlog Island, which I think a lot of my viewers potentially are, dig this one out because it's going to get too old to be worth looking at soon. And it's a really great story, a whole bunch of awesome characters, and not a bad looking 9th generation first person shooter, full stop. Playing games like Atomic Heart, even the new Black Ops 6 Zombies to a certain extent, makes you realise that we have come on a little bit since 2019, but this still holds up very strong, and it's rich in content.
One more thing. I heard the guitar coming from that tower. It had a nice sound, but the player...
That storm still looks absolutely friggin' incredible. That's Red Dead Redemption 2 style skyline, so it will still catch you here and there with some of its jazzy visuals. This was the third game in the series, and there are rumours or talks about maybe Deep Silver pushing for a fourth, potentially. This game did get recognised on the year of its launch. It got BAFTA and it got a Game Awards for its visuals, so not completely unrecognised for its greatness. And on the subject of greatness, From Software fans will be pleased to hear that I'm getting my Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon review ready. That game has broken me a little bit in a good way. I was couch cute. I will see you down there.